This video is a video on how to erect a 16 by 32 hip roof canvas army tent. 16 by 32 canvas army tent is a 5 by 10 meter tent. 16 by 32 indicates feet, by 5 by 10 meters indicates meters, and this is how you put it up. Starting first, you should demarcate the rectangle in a flat area where you want to erect your tent. Make sure the area is flat and doesn't have any pipes or anything underneath the ground that you don't want to stick a peg through. Make sure that the area is flat and that you've demarcated the rectangle. The rectangle, obviously the short side is 16 by the long side is 32, or 5 meters by 10 meters. Make sure that you've demarcated the lines out prior to putting up your tent, even taking your roof out of the bakkie or out of your truck. Make sure that you have demarcated the space and that all your corners are at 90 degrees. This will ensure that your tent is in the right, is when it's erected, is on the floor size that is the correct size, and that will sit taut. Second step is you should knock in all your pegs. You will have a mark where your poles go, and what we do is to indicate the right distance so that all your pegs are the same distance away from your tent in the right spot. We use the wall pole to indicate the distance to where you should put your peg in. As you see from the corner, we put in the peg the distance of the wall pole away. Those wall poles, as you see, they are there to indicate that all the pegs are in the same spot so that the tension when pulled on the roof will all be even. In the corners you'll put 2 pegs, one at a 90 degree going south north and one going east west to the other side, like you see over here, so that in each corner you will have 2 pegs pulling tension on the corners. Knocking your peg in at like a 45 degree angle with the top of the peg, the round bit, facing the tent. Once you have inserted all your pegs into the ground, you shall have a rectangle with all your pegs positioned in the right spot, all before you put your tent up, even before you take your tent out of your truck. The third step in the process would be to open up your roof and position it into that demarcated rectangle, making sure that the outside of the canvas is facing up. By putting it in the right spot, you'll have lined up your eyelets with all your poles. Don't worry about it being too accurate at the moment because of your pegs. When you pull it, it will pull accurately, but all your corners will be in your corners. It will be positioned correctly. The fourth step of the process of putting up your 5 by 10 or 16 by 32 roof or tent would be to put in all 4 corner poles. You don't pull them too tight yet. You put the 4 corner poles in. Make sure that all 4 are anchored, and that will create a bucket shape of your tent hanging in. Once you've inserted your 2 center poles, the tent would look something like this. Then we'll go and start putting in all the wall poles in order to tension up the tent and make it taut. The 5th step of putting up your 16 by 32 or 5 by 10 army tent is you take the 2 center poles, those 2 thick long poles, in 2 separate pieces, and you would join them. Roy, do you want to just join those poles please for me? They just slip in to the other one. That's one, and you have your second one is over there. Then we're going to insert that pole into the plastic apex cap from underneath the tent. Go for it, Roy. Okay, once you have put your center poles in, Then you go and put all your wall poles in. You don't tighten it too tight yet. You first put all your poles in. They should be positioned correctly since you did put in your anchor pegs correct. Just loosely. Don't over tension any side yet, because you can tear your tent if you over tension. The point is to tension evenly across the whole tent, as if you were tuning a drum, or if you were replacing a spare wheel on a car, and you want to make sure that your bolts on the car are, you do the odd ones against each other. As in the tent here, you make sure that the left and the right go on. Once you have put your center poles in, then you put in all your wall poles. Don't over tension your tent yet. The point now is not to tension your tent, not to tighten it yet. The point now is just to position your wall poles correctly. Make sure that your wall poles all positioned the right distance where they're meant to be. As in the 5x10 here, they are 1950 on the side, and from the corner on the short side you're looking at 2 meters. On this tent over here, once you have positioned the tent in the wall poles, then you would proceed to tighten. You tighten the left side and then the opposing pole, the opposite pole on the other side. And you make sure that your poles are at 90 degrees. You don't overstretch your poles. They must be sitting upright at 90 degrees. They mustn't be bending out. Once you have put in all your wall poles, then it's time to tension up. You should tension each pole, you tighten it, each side, and then you tighten the opposite side. And you do so on each rope, doing one rope and then its opposite partner on the other side of the tent. This way that you ensure that your tent has equal tension and it will sit correct and will stay waterproof and stand up to incredibly high winds.